Hello. Can you remember being 23? I was married with a small baby, living in Kettering, working for Barclays. A normal existence for a grammar school boy married to a grammar school girl. We revere those who are older though. We associate age with wisdom and radical action with the young, who we think haven't thought things through perhaps as well as they might. On the 3rd of January in 2003, 23 years ago, a girl was born in Sweden who at the age of 15 in 2018 was to burst onto the pages of our newspapers and the news bulletins on our televisions. Her name, Greta Thunberg. Her mission, to challenge all that was wrong with climate issues and challenge the supposedly older and wiser leaders of the world to follow climate-friendly policies. Since then, she has appeared sometimes to speak with passion or to protest for climate and humanitarian issues, most recently sailing to Gaza on an aid ship and was detained by Israel. Does she have wisdom or simply a strong sense of justice? At a climate conference in 2019, she said, "How dare you?" addressing world leaders about their lack of climate action. Is that wisdom, or is it the fervour of youth that doesn't understand the rules? I make no claim either way. Luke tells us Jesus began his ministry aged about 30. Those with reasonable wealth could live to 60 and beyond, so Jesus would not have seemed to have been wise in years. His first public act was at the hands of his mother, who commanded him to resolve the wine shortage at a wedding. What thoughts went through the head of those that witnessed that event? John tells us his disciples put their faith in him. Then Jesus, the disciples and Mary went to Capernaum before they set out for Jerusalem to celebrate the feast of the Passover. There he had a "how dare you" moment. My translation says he rampaged through the temple, overturning tables, scattering coins, driving out the sheep and the cattle being sold. John tells us Jesus said to those selling doves, "Get these out of here. How dare you turn my Father's house into a market?" After saying "my Father's house," the Jewish people challenged Jesus to prove who he was. He said if the temple was destroyed, it would be raised again in 3 days. He was of course referring to his death and resurrection, not to the destruction of the actual temple. What must people have thought? A claim to be God's son? An act of what looked like violence and vandalism? And then a potentially ridiculous claim? Many turned to Jesus due to his miraculous activity, but equally this started the animosity between Jesus and the religious leaders. Did they see him as wise or a troublemaker? Two young people, Greta Thunberg and Jesus Christ, seen as agitators. Were they seen as wise by the people? After Jesus passed through death, his wisdom began to be acknowledged. The centurion standing next to the cross was the first. Surely this man was the Son of God. Here was the difference, though, although I am not seeking to slight Greta Thunberg in any way. Jesus was wholly human, but also was wholly of God, and had existed before time began, and so his wisdom was well beyond his earthly years. Yet, as we saw through his earthly life, it is sometimes about being radical, about being controversial, about trying to change the current status quo. It's my hope that the new Archbishop of Canterbury is prepared to return our church to a church that shouts against injustice, that is prepared to be at odds with the safe and the acceptable, which often excludes, that we become a church which is prepared to declare itself truly inclusive and deal with the fallout, rather than some of the angst it has brought on itself over the past 50 years. That's not to say wisdom should be placed on the back burner, but once the debate has been had, the church must be clear in its actions. It needs to dare. Thank you and goodbye.